Welcome everyone, and let's get on with it. So our agenda for today, basically, I'm going to walk through for about an hour, navigating the system. We're going to introduce you to all the bells and whistles of FWIS and how to find data, how to edit data, how to navigate the system. So that's our first hour. I'm then going to be speaking for about an hour on different ways to add data. I won't get into the serious details of that because it's a little intense, but I'm going to give you an introduction to how to upload data. Particularly, I'm going to spend some time on the Excel add-ins for both data, pictures, and sketches. So I'll spend some time on that. After that, we're going to walk you through some of the canned queries. There are a lot of queries in FWIS now. We have basically replicated and gone beyond what used to be in the old HabProgs database. So we're quite proud of that. So I'm going to show you a little bit about that. And then hopefully there'll be some time left for a practical exercise. Our intention is to basically open up the time for you to play, try to extract, add data, do whatever you want that is important to you. And Doug and I will basically supervise that session. Hopefully there's enough time to do that. So the mission of the Flowing Water Information System, it's always been designed to help us manage information from flowing waters, all types of information. The initial focus has been on OSAP data. The idea is we wanted to be able to integrate mapping, visuals, and the data, and to facilitate better data analysis because of that. Back in the old days, when we just had databases, we had to have our GIS information separate from the tabular data. And FWIS allows us to have both tabular and spatial data at your fingertips at the same time. We've always wanted to facilitate data sharing amongst the research community and practitioners, and we continue to do that. I think we're just on the cusp of really exploding how that can be done. It does provide a one window approach for reporting on fish sampling records in particular, but other data as well. And it takes advantage of existing summary queries. So people that have been building R scripts, for example, to help analyze or even do data checking on large data sets, we can facilitate their use within the FWIS context. And that's really powerful because for those of you who are familiar with R, it's a spectacular software program that it just has unlimited ability to help analyze and look for problems in data. So we're happy to be able to link with our gurus and make sure that we can do that. Finally, we want to try to minimize, I say minimize because we cannot prevent duplication of data and effort. In fact, there's been an explosion of even more databases being built. And we've been building this one here since 2009. It built on the database HabProgs, which was built in 1995 or 96, something like that. So we are building on databases that have been built for over 20 years, actually over 30 years now. And millions of dollars have gone into building FWIS. We want to try to minimize the amount of effort and money that's spent on building duplicate systems. So we try to build FWIS to facilitate data sharing rather than compete with data systems. So now we're going to go into FWIS and we're going to give you a bit of a tour. Hopefully I can switch. Where did it go? There it is. Oh, it isn't. Huh. Okay, I need to do.
If you can find the share screen button, Les.
Yeah, I did. I guess when I
Link.
when I reset up the program here, I logged myself out of FWIS, so it's not even recognizing Chrome. There we go. It should be able to see it now. There we go. Can you see the FWIS screen, I hope? Hopefully you're seeing. Oh,
Yeah, we're
good.
good. We're good.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so this is the opening screen of FWIS. There's a lot of information on here. Most opening screens are just kind of, yeah, let's get into the dirt. But this one's got a lot of information, and I'm not going to go through it all right now with you, but I will encourage you to read a lot of this background information. It tells you a little bit about the background. There's a YouTube video that Doug developed on how to use FWIS. So generally, if you get lost in something you're in and you can't remember how to get from A to B to C, there's a YouTube video. There's also 2 previous videos that we've done where we've taped training sessions that you can access. They're here. The one was an introduction to FWIS. The other one was quite a long training session we did on the summary queries and the background on the summary queries within FWIS. They are based on sort of 30 years of research. And now, I mean, it's ingrained in my head, but it's not ingrained in your heads. And there's a lot of background on that. There's a lot of manuscripts that have been written on FWIS data, on testing the reliability and repeatability of the data, et cetera, et cetera. Some of that is explained in that one training session. So again, it's about a 4-hour session, but you can highlight through it and just skip to the areas that that are of more interest to you. But I'd encourage you to do that. There's also, this is where you get access to the spreadsheets that I'm going to be showing you in a little while. And most importantly, down at the bottom here are the data sharing agreements. And for you to be able to see data, you have to agree to the rules. And basically, FWIS is built on a tit-for-tat basis, whereby if you contribute data, i.e. you're a contributor, you get access to the data, and it's basically unlimited. If you're a user or a researcher, you basically get a one-shot deal at accessing the data. And the difference, the real difference is that the users, the people you use the data from will be contacted and told that, hey, so-and-so researcher is accessing your data and they're intending to use it for X, Y, and Z. So we have 2 different data sharing agreements, but if you basically don't sign those off or your organization doesn't sign off on those, you really won't see any data. You'll just see site locations and the actual bare bones. So I'd, if you haven't already, please make sure that you sign off on the data sharing agreement. This Flowing Waters wonderful logo up here will always, wherever it is, it shows up on every screen. If you click on it, it will take you back to the home screen. Okay, so that's just something to know. The other thing you can do, which is pretty cool, I'm using this in Chrome, but you can use it in Edge and other, programs, whatever you want. If you click on this and hit right tab, it will open FWIS in a new tab. It's very helpful to do that because lots of times you're going back and forth between mapping data and tabular data. And without having to restart your queries, you can simply open this up as many times as you want, and it allows you to then navigate through the various screens. So I'd encourage you to do that. I do it all the time, in fact. Over to the right-hand side here, there's an options screen where you will you will be offered, in fact, it's mandatory that you have a secret question. So if and when you forget your password, it will ask you what your secret question is, and you can continue on. This is where if you want to change your password, and I'd also encourage you to do that. We gave you a pretty generic one that may not be that easy to remember. I'd encourage you to change your password.
I could, but it'll just be loud.
Somebody was, okay. The other thing that's on this page is down here. You'll see I have my results per page set to 50. That's because I live in Prince Edward County and our internet is horrible. I'm here in Toronto right now and I have pretty good internet. So I'm going to change my results per page to 1,000 and hope, well, maybe that's too many. We'll go to 250. What that does is it says, how many records are we going to send to you at any one time? And depending on your internet speed, you can set it to whatever works for you. If you find it's really slow, this is where you change the numbers of records and it will speed up your system. Don't forget, when any page, if you make any changes, hit update. And that will send it to the system. If you forget to hit update, it will warn you. It says you're going to leave this page. Are you sure you don't want to record your changes? But make sure to hit that. Okay, so on these buttons up here, there are, however many there are here, 7 or 8 different drop-down menus that have data discovery, where you can find out what data there is. Adding and editing data. This is where you go in to add or edit data or discover data, which is another way to do that. Here's all our data summaries and queries, and you can see there's a whole pile of them. I'll be going through those later on. A really important page is this one here. So exporting data. If you want just the raw data sent to your system, this is where you do it. And all the tables are listed. And within each one, for example, let's go to, I don't know, temperature measurements. Within that screen, anyways, this is normally where you would go in. And if you had specific data that you wanted to export, I will try to get to show you the screen that pops up. I'll definitely show it to you later. That allows you to then sort and reduce the data sets. You don't want to download all the data because there might be 70,000 records. You want to be explicit about exactly what you're downloading and why. Okay, the same thing for importing data. There is this option. I haven't used this for a long time now, but you can use this mechanism to import data, but it's basically a dinosaur now. So we'll come back to that one. There's a whole bunch of other data. One of the things that FWIS has been evolving towards is more of a holistic stream monitoring database. And not all data is associated with an OSAP module. So for example, there are a number of geomorphologists that have modules that we never built OSAP modules for. They collect fabulous data. There didn't seem to be a need to collect or to develop an OSAP module, but things like bank pins, for example, that for eroding banks. There's a pretty standardized way of collecting that data. There was no repository for it. So it has now been brought into FWIS and incorporated within the spatial configuration of FWIS. So that's the cool part. If there are similar stream codes and site codes and spatial information, you can link up these non-OSAP databases to look at an even more holistic approach of understanding streams and their ecosystems. So you can see what we've got in here. There's quite a few data sets. There's more coming. There's substrate modules. We've got the OBBN data sets in here, which are OSAP, but they're maintained in a different format, the data. So it provides us with a mechanism to store that data. We've also got time series temperature data. Oh, we do have this thing working now. So for example, we have 460 sites in here now. We got this data back from M&R after a long discussion. And we are still trying to sort out how to best manage this information. Some of the proposals were to put this data into Whiskey or to put it into the Oak Ridge Marine database. We haven't sorted out all that detail. So for now, the data is sitting here in an interim format. But if you want to search for it by the site codes, when the date was, you can search for the digital temperature data. And as I said, there's 460 sites. Each of those has a long, upwards of 4 months to longer data set associated with each record. So it's a fairly massive data set. We also have a section in here called FWIS News. And I want to spend a second or two on this page because, and you don't have to memorize this, obviously, but the important thing is it identifies the hierarchy, the structure of FWIS. So there's, just like any relational database, there's a structure to it, and all the data has to fit that structure, including those non-standard data sets that we were talking about, whereby there's a stream and a stream code, there's a site code, there's a sample event, there's a project and an organization. These are all key fields that have to be filled out for every record in FWIS. And every download you do will have those key records. So that's really important to know if you're starting to think about uploading additional data. Remember that those key fields have to be, they have to match what's in FWIS, and they have to be unique. Otherwise, the system doesn't work. And then after that, you can see that there's a whole bunch of different tables that are linked through these key fields. And that's what we're going to be spending a lot of the rest of the day looking about. Any questions on that? Or was that too fast of a whirlwind? Okay, so this is kind of what you see whenever you access a table or access a window, I should say, to search for data, including the import export data. You can search by stream codes, site codes, stream names, etc. And every time you put in one element, they link. So it's on this stream code, this site code has to match it, etc. Does that make sense to you? Hopefully it does. So if you are working on, the credit river, you just simply look up the credit river, which is CR1. You type that in, you do a search for the credit river, or it will, the next query will restrict it by any records associated with the credit river. This screen in particular that I dropped down to, this search for site locations spatially, is an excellent first window for you to look at and find out what kind of data is in the database associated with any area that you are interested in. Now you'll get to a window like this that you can search spatially with. You can zoom in by hitting this button here. You can drag the mouse around to zoom to new areas. This is a pretty cool page. There's a lot of stuff on here. For example, you can measure distances. I will quite often check site locations by measuring distances on a stream. They say they're 200 meters upstream of a road. I will use this bar here to check the distance. It's very cool. There, oh, stop that. Escape. Okay, so the other thing on here is there are a number of canned polygons that you can use to restrict searches. So they're already set. So the one I tend to use the most is conservation authorities, but you can see here there are other ones. If you're working for M&R, for example, there's the fisheries management zones. Within that, then, you can select an area. So here's, hopefully Vicky's on the call by now. You can search within the Lower Thames Region Conservation Authority. You can ask it to search, and any data that's associated with that conservation authority that's in FWIS will come up. If you hit the search button. And it is a little slow here. Probably all of you are doing a search for your own area right now. And the server's going, whoa, wait a second. Yeah, it's slow. I can see my little wheel turning and turning. It usually doesn't take this long. Even from Prince Edward County, it doesn't take this long. So what it's doing is it's looking for all of the FWIS locations, and it's buffering that using this polygon to say, hey, are there any in the Lower Thames Conservation Area? And then it will come up eventually, and it'll give me a list. Okay, so there's the records. If I want to plot them on the map, I just do that. And it'll give me a zoom in on where those sites are located. It won't tell me what the data is. It also tells me that we've never actually gone and verified the location of these sites. Now, I'll show you how to do that in a little while, but we have these color-coded buttons that indicate whether or not somebody has gone in, usually the data owner, to go in and have a look at the data and verify that it's in the right location. This is sort of a residual thing from the old HabProgs days. So basically all the data that was brought in from HabProgs, however many thousands of records we had, they were always just put into a tabular database without the ability to go in and check it in a GIS. Or somebody might have pulled it out and analyzed it in a GIS, typically didn't go back in and correct the locations. Or if they did, there's no record of how that they did. So that's a bit of a problem that we are slowly correcting. Now, having said that, over the years, we have been improving the location of the sites as much as we can. And with people analyzing the data, they have been looking at it as well. And it's pretty cool. So if you want to see what data is available with one of these sites, you just click on that little button. I should back up and show you that again. I went too fast. So here it says preview the data. Oh, that's cool. Why, there's data on Clear Creek. I wonder what it is. This is the University of Toronto is the organization that owns this data. So they're the guys, or the student who did that work is the one who should go in and correct the location of all those sites. So then this box comes up and it shows that it was collected in 2001. There's channel morphology data, fish data, and site features data was collected at that. And you can click on here and hopefully, view the access to sampling data. You click on this button above it. It does help to read the boxes. They're actually a little bit better than just randomly clicking. I'm not very good at doing that. So then you can actually see the data. You will note here that the check marks are yellow. That means I can't edit the data because I'm not the user. I'm not with the organization that collected it, but I can view it. And you just click on this button and the information comes up. Pretty cool way to discover data. And it looks like it was a one-run sample, no length separating buckets, blah, blah, blah. And we can get to the sampling details. But there you go. So now I can hit back on the button and back a couple more times, and I get to the main page. A very powerful tool this thing is. There's other things you can do within this tool as well. You can draw your own polygons. You can select a vector by hitting on this button here. You will also notice that other data surrounding it eventually comes up. So the priority is to do the one in here. And it is, oh, but by the way, there's a whole bunch of other data collected in and around that site. Any questions about that? Okay. Let's go on to, am I going too fast? I'm not, that's the hard part about FWIS or about Zoom. You never know if you're going too fast or not. Okay. Let's talk about adding and editing data. We're going to start with project metadata. As I said earlier, a project code and a project description is mandatory for every piece of data that's collected. We now have 379 separate projects. Many people are lumpers, some are splitters. So for example, you can go down here and you can see all these ARP ones, ARP 1 to 25 or something like that. This would be a splitter. I would discourage splitting if you're setting up your own projects. simply because we already have year as a mandatory field. If you wish to separate out your data on a yearly basis, it's easy to do. We've already got year. So if you have one project that's intended to go for 25 or 30 or 40 years, have one project. The idea behind a project is that it has similar rules associated with the data. So that means that you would be willing, or you have thought about how to, this one hasn't been filled out at all, except it's OSAP. Similar criteria were used to both select where the sampling was done, the methods that were used, and the seasonality of the sampling. That's basically a project. And what you should do is fill in the criteria you used to select or define your project. So for example, in this instance, all we know about this project is that it used OSAP data. We don't know how the sites were selected and why they were selected. So for example, were they random? Were they stratified by things like land use, barriers, stocking strategies, et cetera, et cetera? We don't know any of that. So in the future, 30 years from now, people really won't be able to make any inferences about the biases associated with the data. If you have that information, then you can make an informed decision about those biases and whether you want to include those data or not in future analysis. So we're encouraging people. This has really only been in the system about 7 or 8 years now, I guess. So there's a lot of historic data that we don't have that information for. And we are starting to go through it and fill in that information. In fact, I didn't mean to pick on FOCA. That was not fair, because I was poking around here in preparation for this course and found one of my projects from 1999 that had not been filled out properly. So I went in yesterday in preparation for this course and started to fill in all these details which hadn't been filled in before. These were all blank, but they should have been filtered. In fact, I should have said that this is previous sampling at selected biomass stations. The more information you provide, the better for future people. So this was just a project that we selected on Wilmot Creek, where we had 50 some sites that we sampled, testing the effectiveness of electrofishing effort on catches. But it was also a longitudinal survey, so we could get population estimates. So it was kind of a cool study, but I hadn't filled in any of this information. So it was important. Oh, in fact, I just realized I hadn't filled this in either. So the data is open to anybody, and I'll update that. Really important page. Encourage you to use it. At minimum, you have to provide a code for that site. We also have, when you do that, if you set up a new project, it will tell you what organizations are associated with that project. And you can have more than one. A lot of the work that we've done on Lake Ontario, back when I was collecting the data, we would have multiple organizations associated with the project. So for example, SoSmart, the organization, sponsored several projects. And when we set up the SoSmart project, I included the names of all of the conservation authorities that were part of that project. What that means in FWIS language is that any of them can then go in and edit the data associated with that project. Okay, so you have to basically assign the organization. The organization has to be in our list. If it's not, then Doug will add it, basically. Any questions about that? Okay. Stream names and stream codes. This is a bit of a nightmare. I apologize for it, but we have lumpers and splitters again. So for example, I mean, a good example would be the Credit River, which has West credit, East credit, South credit, like all kinds of credits, and they all have different site code or stream codes. So again, we've got splitters versus lumpers. The reason I'm showing you this is one, there has to be a stream code. It has to be unique. It can be split. Personally, I discourage splitting for the reasons that you will see as we do searches. Whenever you query the database, the query is always based on the stream code unless you add multiple ones. So I can do a search on all the, as I said here, just on the credit. I might even be missing one. In fact, I'm pretty sure I'm missing Black Creek, for example, and Silver Creek, which are also tributaries of the credit. So that's one of the weaknesses of the system, is that you basically have to know what you're looking for, or what I do is I rely on the spatial queries to make sure that I get all of the data associated with the boundaries. Hopefully that makes sense. There is no perfect system when we have these stream codes. It's just the way it is. Hopefully that makes sense. If you're entering in new data, then my advice would be to lump, if at all possible, create one stream code. The probability is it's already in the system. When you start seeing these spatial maps, you will discover that most of Southern Ontario is heavily sampled. We have thousands of samples now. So the probability is that your stream already exists in FWIS, and we encourage you to use whatever code that is. And if it doesn't exist, if we've missed it, then here's where you would add in a new entry. And you would add in the stream name, the stream code. If there's an alternate code that your office has used, I found it quite hilarious that several conservation authorities had multiple codes for the same stream. So the hydrologists would have one code and the biologists would have a different code. And the same thing happened with site codes. I had one location, I won't say what river, it doesn't matter. There's lots of rivers that have got this, where especially at bridge crossings, we will have 3 or 4 site codes for the same bridge crossing. Because people will collect water quality, discharge, biology, whatever, and every group sets up their own code. So we have an alternate code section within FWIS, and this can have several alternate codes. A little description is what you add in there. Okay, so as far as that hierarchy is concerned, we've now set up a project code, we've set up a stream code, we then go to site codes. The next phase in the hierarchy. And you will see here there are 12,960 site codes already. They are unique to a stream code, not a stream name. Okay, so I'll go to my favorite stream. Even Wilmot Creek, you'll see, has WM 1, 2, and 3. And just on Wilmot Creek, we have 216 sites, distinct sites. That's a lot of sites. And so you can click on each one and you can edit them if you need to. You can validate them. Here's where you would validate them. Yes, these are all in the right location. And you can do a bulk validation here, which is an easy way to do that. If your site is not in here, here's where you would add in a new entry. So I'm walking you through basically the manual way of entering data into FWIS. If you were doing just a few sites, if you 2 or 3 sites, this is the fastest way to do it. For those of you, if anybody's familiar here with TabProgs, the old data entry screen, here it is. So you can search for stream code and break down your diagnosis. If you know the name of your stream, oh, that's the site I want to go to. Here's when it was sampled. There was one sample, and here's what was collected. You can then go straight to the data and start entering it or editing it or viewing it, whatever you want. This is just one way to do it. You can also search by project codes or spatially to find the data that you want to work on. So one way to access and begin viewing and editing data. Another way is this sample events tab. This is the one that I tend to use the most. What have we got here? McLean, Phil. I'm trying to see if I could cover somebody other than Wilmot Creek. Anybody have any preferred streams they'd like? Oh, we can go to Cataraqui. There we go. I don't remember what Cataraqui is though. Is it CR? No, it's not CR. I can't remember. So I'll type it in here. River tributary search. No matches. So should have. That's interesting. Somebody has set up a Cataraqui River tributary as a stream. Oh, hang on. Got to get rid of that.
There's CRT last.
Pardon me? No, I know that was leftover.
Okay.
I didn't mean that to be there. Excuse me. So the Cataraqui, there are 3 sites in the Cataraqui where we've got site identifications, site features. It's part of the bioregional Eastern Region Biocriteria project. I can see where those are. It tells me what data there is. Yeah. On the Cataraqui. So it's a very fast way to discover data, particularly if you know what you're looking for. The other thing about this is that you can search by project codes. So I was telling you earlier about EEC. I was playing with this yesterday, and you're going to see more of this because I didn't quite get it done. There, that looks a little better. Not sure why, but there you go. Something weird about my other code. So with this project, we had 94 sites. And what I want to show you down here is that it goes to several pages, because remember I said there'd be 50 pages per page. And if you look through here, yeah, I wanted to just show you the project codes on there, the data that's associated with it. Doug, you didn't update this last night, did you?
No, I left it all alone.
Huh. Okay. Good. So I just wanted to show you that. And from here, you can basically get to any of it. Gives you a listing of what data there is. And if you wanted to check out individual data, you would click on that fish record. It'll tell you where the fish runs are. It would show me what we caught in individual fish or widths or whatever we had here. And there's what our individual catches are, et cetera, et cetera. So that's basically how you navigate to individual records. If you don't constrain the query, you will get all the data, which is, it's a lot of data. Any questions about that? Okay, now I would like to switch modes and go back to the PowerPoint deck if I can for a second. Where is it? There it is. Hopefully you're seeing the PowerPoint deck again. And we are down to, okay, the Excel utilities. Now this tool that Doug has built has basically replaced the tables that I showed you earlier about data import. The reason it's replaced it is because Doug has been able to build in a bunch of canned queries to check the data before it's entered. That's what's so cool about this. There's a utility for the actual raw data in all the tables, one after another, also photos, and sketches. And we can also use non-OSAP data sets. Now we call it going into the iEnvironment field. So that's how we've been bringing in all that geomorphic data and the digital temperature data, et cetera, et cetera. You simply create a table and upload it, and then we provide the linkages afterwards. So there's 3 different ways to upload data. It's very cool. So some of the things it can do is the first thing when you download the Excel utility, this is the button that will show at the top. Now, some organizations have got restrictions on whether or not you can bring in Excel utilities within your system. And you'll have to check with your IT people to see if that's feasible. If it's not, what we've had people do is take a computer home and download the utility there and do it from home rather than doing it from work, which is a bit of a pain. But the built-in QA/QC things are phenomenal. So what that means is that we have queries that we'll check to make sure that all of the key fields match and are in the hierarchy that they need to be. It'll also check to make sure that if you have a logical field, i.e. a 0, 1 or true false, that is what is actually in the field. You can't put -99, or you can't put sort of, or any text fields. You can't do that. It has to meet the criteria of what is in the database. Sometimes, depending on your internet and also, I guess, the server, whether it is up and running, it will sometimes time out. So if you use, I've uploaded as many as 1,000 records at a time, and quite often it will time out when I'm doing that because our internet sucks. When that's the case, it'll tell you which rows have been added and which ones haven't been added. All you do is create a break at that location, copy the ones that you've been using to the bottom and redo it. It's very cool. And it also compares the data. So I'm going to show you, hopefully, this will automatically jump to it. Probably not. I'm assuming you can't see an Excel spreadsheet. And now you can. Is that correct? You can now see the Excel spreadsheet?
Yep.
Great. Okay. The most important part of this, first of all, is here is the FWIS. It'll show up as a regular Excel spreadsheet. So if you go to home, that's what it looks like, just like a regular Excel spreadsheet. But it will have this button here called FWIS, and you just click on that. You can log in. I'm going to have to log in a second here. Maybe I'll do it now. Get it done. Already logged in. Never logged me out. That's good to know. On this page, you need to know about this Excel spreadsheet. This is on this page. I'm obviously not going to read it to you right now, but typically if you're trying to upload data and it doesn't work, the answer will be somewhere on this page. The other thing that's on this page is scrolling capabilities. So you can always go to a specific table by clicking on that button, and it will take you to the specific table. You'll notice at the bottom, all the different table names are here, all the tables that are within FWIS. If you want to go back to the introduction tab, that's how you do it. Every page will have that little introduction, which is a way to get back to the page. The other thing that's here is you can hyperlink straight to each of the tables. If you know what table you want to add in, then you hyperlink to it. The other thing is they are in the order that you need to add them. So for example, you'll see stream code, site unique, organization, project. These all have to be entered in before you can add in data from any of these other tables. Now, if you've only got one stream, my advice would be to do these one in the data. As long as it's entered, then you can continue on. You can do it in bulk. So if you're at a big organization, you've got 20 streams, do it using this utility. Okay, does that make sense? Hopefully it does. The other thing that's down here, down near the bottom, are a whole bunch of lookup tables. So within the tables, there are often standard codes that are used to fill in the tables. And I'll show you that in a second. If you don't know what the code is for electrofishing, you can go to this table and it will tell you what the codes are for these individual units, for example. These are the codes that have to be in the table. If you use something else and it's not on this, it has to be added. And then you have to basically talk to Doug to make sure it gets added in the database.
Well, that's
So
your
this
audio
is
broke up a
the
little bit
most
there.
important page of the entire system. This page right here. Oh, did it? As I was trying to say, this is the most important page in the entire utility. So, and you'll notice down here, all of these notes are to assist you in doing uploading. And it may seem a little daunting at first. It's only because it's extremely powerful. So for example, here 1899 was not perfect. I mentioned that. The reason it's not perfect is back in the old days of PabProgs, we assigned only one project code to a sample event. And we were partnering with LOMU, the Lake Ontario Management Unit, for some of the data. So some of our data got associated with LOMU. Some of it erroneously got associated with it. Some of it just got associated with our Trend Through Time project. So we had, in fact, all should EC99 was associated with multiple other projects, and which is fine, except that it means that they weren't associated with EC99. Does that make sense? The other thing to show you on these pages is most standard. One of the things of the width data, I had it in an Excel spreadsheet. It never made it to the Access database. So I basically yesterday decided I would try to fix that. So I've done a couple of instances where I've added data in using this. I asked for it to check it and to add it. So these ones have been done. And what I'm going to do is I'm hopefully, if the gods are smiling on me, I am going to move this to the bottom. I'm going to try to move this to the bottom. Stop that. And I am going to hopefully add this data. So with this utility, this second row is generally designed for telling you what's in it. I've deleted it from this page, which I probably shouldn't have done. You leave an empty column here. This is the name, and this just basically says all the data to the left of this column is what is to be added or checked in the database. You'll notice these are all the key fields: the stream code, site code, date, sample number, and then the rest of it is attributes. This is the table I wanted to check. I wanted to check and see if this project code is associated with that project. So the first thing I do is I ask it to compare the worksheets. So now it's going to the database. It's looking at each one and it's saying, hey, these ones are all missing. And that's what I found out from the day before, that these samples were associated with the wrong project. So I want to add these so that now it's going to tell me if you hit that button, it's going to change the database. Are you sure you want to do that? Yes, I am. Let's see if it works. So it's doing row by row. It's going to the database, and it says here, this one was already there. What does that say? That sample event already exists. So we had already corrected that one. And now it's adding all the rest. Hopefully it won't take too long. Maybe I shouldn't have done too many. Oh, maybe I should have just done half of this. But you see how effective this can be for adding or updating data. So it's saying, hey, this one's already existing. Now you're going to update that one. So update it. I think this is just the coolest thing ever. This tool. I added thousands and thousands of records that I received from a variety of organizations who had all their data stored in Excel spreadsheets. And I was able to basically cut and paste it into this format and upload them. And it felt really good. We got Rob Macaris data into the system. He had 20 years of data using basically all the OSAP modules and some more. And we were able to get it all uploaded using this utility. So it's really cool, really powerful. So now I've got this other data that has the width information and these other attributes that have not been updated. But I have now changed the stream codes. Oh, that needs to be copied. You have to watch if you're doing this. Because now what I've done is I've updated all of the project codes to the appropriate ones. And it should be able to update this data. So what I have to do is, I think I've already done that one, but I'm not 100% sure. It'll tell me. If you're not sure, it'll tell you. So what I need to do now is, again, compare the worksheet. See, I've got a space here. I want it to go to table fish sample event, and I want it to compare this data. Okay, that was pretty fast. So what it did is it said, yep, you already updated that one. So there's no differences. I'm not going to do a change to that. The other ones are in there as records. According to this one doesn't exist. Says I might have to add it. We'll find out. And it'll update the others. I suspect I didn't do that one. The beauty of this thing, the reason I wanted to show you this is it tells me, you idiot, you haven't added that record yet. But I don't have time to fix that right now. What I'm going to do is update all the other ones. So it really allows you to do the QA/QC and update it. So I'm going to have to go in and fix this one afterwards. I'll do that after this record. You can see how fast this is. It's doing one row at a time. It's updating all of these fields, and I will soon be able to get biomass estimates from my sites. So while it's doing that, very cool. Any questions about this? This is the thing I expected there to be lots of questions on. How are we doing for time? Of course, I'm over. No, I think we're all right. No questions at all? Wow. Okay. Really powerful way to, it looks like I missed two. So I'll fix those later. Really powerful way to upload data. So now I'm going to go back to, hopefully you're seeing the PowerPoint deck again. I won't spend too much time on this, but I do want to mention it because one of the things that FWIS has the ability to do is to also store and view photographs and sketches. I should have shown you that when I was looking at the site identification data. I should have done that, but basically, typically we took lots of photos. Now you're taking them with your phones, and they get stored in a different place than your digital data. FWIS allows you to upload photos and sketches of your sites, and you can do them individually through the tool, but typically that takes time. This tool that we've got now is super powerful. Basically, all you have to do is have your data, your photograph names in a table that match the stream code as site code, as well as the description, like this, and you use the same upload utility. Extremely powerful, extremely effective. The only limitation is that the photographs can't be bigger than, I think it's 2 megs. Is that right, Doug?
That sounds about right. Let's
Yeah.
we're still looking at the spreadsheet. I wasn't sure if we were supposed to.
Oh, you are?
Yep.
Oh, you're supposed to be looking at this.
That's better.
That better? Okay, so this is just an absolutely fabulous tool. And I have to tell you that photographs get lost. And it sucks. I lost thousands of records when I left M&R. Thank God I had uploaded the site pictures of all of our sampling over the 20-some years into FWIS before I left, because my computer crashed afterwards and all the photographs were lost. And that was after I had to scan them all. So really powerful. And I've used it now a few times to upload multiple photographs. So it's really quite simple. You will have a directory somewhere. This thing says my computer's doing something. So here's the listing. You will have a directory on your computer that has the names of the photographs. You'll have the date that you took them, the photo description. You can use, what I do when I do this is I use find and replace. And that's how I populate the descriptions. You need the directory of where the photo is found, and it has to go right down to the actual directory. So the name of the actual file, I use concatenate to get this. So I will have the name of the directory. And for those of you who haven't used the concatenate feature in Excel, extremely powerful and useful for creating these directories. So all you do is you'd have that and you concatenate that directory to add in that JPEG. And now this is, it tells basically the program knows where to go to get the slide, and it puts it into the program. It uploads it to FWIS. Extremely powerful. You can do the same thing with your sketches. And I'm not going to go through the example of this. It's just like the other one, except it's more powerful. Any questions about either uploading sketches or photos? Okay. Let's go back to okay, I'm going to suggest we take a 10-minute bio break. And then we come back and continue. How's that sound? So we reconvene at what is it? 10:17, 10:27. Is that what? Brilliant. Okay. What was I going to say? Oh, I know what it was. I forgot to mention, when using the Excel utility, it's a good idea to copy the page and open a new page. So create a new worksheet and copy whatever table it is you want to upload into that worksheet and then rename it so you can find it. You will have noticed that mine was called EF 99, I think, or something like that. It was just a worksheet title that I recognized, and it directed me what to do. But it's a good idea to do that so that you don't destroy the other base tables. The other thing I didn't mention, and probably should have, is that each of those tables has all of the columns associated with the data set. Some of them, well, a lot of them don't need to be filled out. There are mandatory data, and you may not have all the information associated with that table. And if that's the case, then you can either hide them or delete them in the version that you're doing. The table I updated, I basically just included the fields that I wanted to be updated. If you have other data and you want to do a check to see if it's the same as is in FWIS, then you would keep all the data. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. It means that you really just need to work with the data that you have, and you don't have to worry about all of the other fields. That's particularly important for things like the project table, where there are many, many fields associated with the project for which may be irrelevant to your study, and you can just delete those. You don't have to have them in the columns. So the query will only look at all of the columns to the left of the action, and that's it. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, let's talk about the data summaries and queries. I think we're pretty good for time. This is, as I said earlier, a really powerful tool. If you've got two screens, you can, hopefully without crashing FWIS, follow along. I'm going to be mostly staying on the slide deck for now, and I'm assuming that you will follow along. I will probably go to my favorite one and have a look at that. So as you can see by this drop-down menu, there are a lot of canned summary queries that that can be run and are run for each of the OSAP data sets. We don't yet have any queries for the non-OSAP data sets, and we also have, we are still missing some queries that eventually we would like to run for some of the OSAP data sets. So for example, some of our RAM modules, we don't have summary queries for them yet. We also don't have some for the Headwater modules. So there's a few modules yet that we have, they're sort of lower priority for generating canned summary queries. It doesn't mean that the data is not in there and that you can't extract it. Of course you can. It's just you'd have to run your own queries to do that. Having said that, this list of queries that we are generating or have generated was based on requests from users of the system. So we basically have done the priority ones first. And if you have a need for RAM data or some other module that we don't have data yet, by all means, contact us and we'll see what we can do. Okay, so there's when you open the summary query, you'll have a standard set of pages at the top that I encourage you to have a look at, because there's 39,000 samples in FWIS and you won't want to look at them all, or you generally don't want to look at them all. So you can restrict your searches and for the summary queries by any of these. And particularly, I often search by the start date and the end date. Some of the pages will have it as a year, some will have it as a date. We are trying to harmonize that across the board. So for example, you can look for metadata discovery, just finding out what data has been associated with a specific project. And here's one in particular. We searched for the metadata, and this is what data is associated with that. The scientific collector's permit report. Now this is just something that we built for users to assist them because when you collect fisheries data, if you're a non-M&R organization, you have to do a scientific collector's report. What was happening is that most organizations were putting the data into FWIS or into their own database, and then they had to generate a second database to create the scientific collector's permit. So what we've done is we've just created a series of queries within FWIS to extract the information and generate these reports that can then be downloaded and sent to M&R to appease their needs for having the scientific collector's permits. It also, Doug will do a QA/QC, particularly on the license numbers, because they're sometimes not consistent through the data records, or just the locations may not be perfect. A variety of things that Doug kind of, because he's a bit A-type, can't help himself. He does a QA/QC on these records and sends them out. You have to wait for the email though, download it and send it. We don't send in the records. You have to do that. So if you, yes?
Hi, it's Jen. So this year I received a new report from M&R that they had requested we fill out. And I've been meaning to send it to you and Doug just to verify if in fact, is it really new? Is there something that we're missing in the process that FWIS has developed to deal with this? So I'm going to send it to you guys soon.
Please send it.
Yeah.
We had a conversation with them in the fall, and they said that at least to what we were told, was that everything that is in our current record is still fine.
Okay, that's
So
good to
they're
know.
willing to accept it. That was in the fall, though things might have changed.
Yeah.
But as far as I know, the people that have sent in the requests from FWIS, they've been accepted.
Okay, that's good. I'll send you the update, and if you can just verify, that would be
Okay.
great.
Yep, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Wes, I was wondering the same thing now that the districts have changed boundaries again.
Well, that's what I said. We were dealing with head office, and we have been told basically that to date, none of the records that have been sent in using Doug's process have been rejected. So it's basically until we hear that there's a problem, we're not going looking for one. So I guess we're going to have to ask them again. I find it quite amusing that each district is sort of going back to developing their own system again. However, we just try to do our best. If you run into a problem, let us know, basically. I don't know what else to say. We get mixed messages depending on who we talk to. We'll look into it again. Okay, so there are a number of biological metrics. I'm going to pop back out for a second because this is like my favorite one. The fish distributional one. We've got fish summaries by a whole bunch of records and benthic macroinvertebrates. We calculate a Hilsnoff index plus HSI summaries for all of them. These are the coolest. So I can't help myself. I've got to go and do a query for you. So hopefully I can do a new share. Hopefully you're seeing my FWIS sign again, or my FWIS page. Is that correct? You are? Where am I here? Fish. Are you guys seeing this?
Yep.
Great. I love this fish species distribution query. It is basically the most comprehensive fish data set in the province by far. So we have all the FWIS data. We have the ROM data. It's updated about every year. The ARA data is updated about every 6 months. We've got DFO data, not the research DFO, but the regular program DFO data. And of course, anyone else who's willing to provide us with data. It is a massive database. And you have the ability to turn on or off different layers. If you're only interested in FWIS data, or you're only interested in the ROM, et cetera, you can turn these off. You can search for individual species. And of course, I always look for brook trout because they're my favorite. In case anybody, didn't know, you basically come to this page, you click on the fish you want. It's now querying the database, and I don't know what the current, last time I checked, it was over 80,000. I don't know how many are in there now, Doug. Maybe you can tell me. Records of individual places around the province where fish have been collected. So right now it's looking at all of those records, all 80 or 90,000, whatever it is, and trying to see if there's any brook trout. So it does take a bit of time, but it's incredibly powerful. You can restrict it, but I like looking at the whole province. So it has the same layers that you can restrict it to your own district or your own conservation authority, etc. If you wish. Right now we're doing the whole province. So we'll get on that. Generally, this thing works really well. And I don't know why well, I do know why everybody's doing it at the same time. Hopefully some of you have had more luck than me. Anyways, while I'm here, I will go back to the main page and go back to the fish. Okay, so the fish summary data, you can extract it by individual sites. You can extract it for multiple sites, and as well as do bulk downloads. So here is, for example, one fish summary by an individual site. It gives you the information on effort. It tells you what the site was. It tells you where it got the site length data. It gives you the usable area, et cetera, et cetera. It also gives you a listing of the catches of all the species, including a list of the species that you don't have biomass information on. So quite often, if you know your OSAP methods, if you preserve samples, you take it back to the lab, you bring it back, you enter it just as being present without any weight. This will give you a list of those species as well. So it gives you a full list of the biomass, estimated biomass, if we have a correction curve for it. That's over here on the very far right. To correct it to a different effort. It's a very cool report. You can also do it for multiple events. So if you select the next tab down, you can restrict it again by spatial parameters. You can export it as a CSV file and run R scripts on it. It also classifies whether, one of the cool things it does is it does a QA/QC on whether or not the site matches the OSAP criteria. So in other words, if the site is more than 40 meters long, and it also, if you have a minimum effort of 5 seconds per square meter, it allows you, it gives you all the data, but there's a flag that basically says it does or doesn't meet the minimum criteria for OSAP fish sampling, which is pretty cool. And we're using that right now in our scripts to extract and generate a number of fish metrics for use in other analysis. So for example, we have all of the HSI metrics. So the numbers of predators, the numbers of generalists, the numbers of cold water fish, warm water fish. It goes on and on and on. There's something like 30 different metrics that we take from the fish summary query and generate all those metrics for you. So you don't have to do it again. It's already available in an R script. It's very cool. Okay, so where was I? As far as benthic invertebrates are concerned, we generate the standard Hilsenhoff index based on the 28 group of taxa that OBB and OSAP collect, is generated, as well as you get a report, and it tells you what you collected, how you collected, and what the Hilsenhoff score is, as well as an interpretation of it. Again, the bulk export of the benthic data can go directly into Patrick Schaefer's GitHub tool, which then does a whole series of other summary metrics for that benthic data. So we're really taking advantage of the R scripts. There was no sense in us duplicating that effort within FWIS when all we had to do was standardize the export. So by having all of this data in the same format, it makes it very easy for our scripts to analyze it. So very pleased with both of those. We also have a whole series of suitability indices for the fish that were generated a long time ago, but some of them are pretty darn cool for the various Hilsenhoff ratings and also fish. So I want to stop for a second here. Oh no, I'll continue through, then we'll come back to that. We've also got data summary inquiries for water temperature. So we generate both whether it's a cold, cool, or warm water, or whether it's a cold, cool, warm, cold. Basically, the Stoneman and Jones or the Chew diagnostics are run within FWIS now. So you get it all. You also get minimum, maximum temperatures, and you get standardized temperature. The standardized temperature we used in a lot of analysis to allow you to compare between sites. So what it does is it calculates the difference between the temperature that you observed as corrected to 30 degrees and a cold water stream. So all of your sites can be compared to one standard, and you can then look at whether or not it's higher or lower than that standard in a comparable way. Really cool statistic. And all of these are generated in a single report for that site. So here's the Stoneman and Jones classification for this site. It's a warm. Chew classifies it as a cool, warm site. We had a maximum air temperature of 26 degrees and a water temperature of 22. And the standardized temperature is 24.5 degrees. We probably don't need those 3 decimal points on that. Doug, I just noticed those. We also have thermostability indices for all of the, not all the common species from Lake Ontario. And again, some of them are really powerful R squares on these. When we did this, basically these provided our strongest relationship to our biological metrics. The thermal stability index was the best. So we have those as well. Okay. Spot flow discharge. Am I going too fast, by the way? I'm not hearing any.
You're doing fine, Les, but I have a question for you. Let's say
Okay.
we wanted to add some fish to that last slide. Some species. Because I always want more or less. So
Of course.
So is that something that, if certain CAs, certain members have suggestions, we could filter those to you?
Well, yes and no.
Mhm.
There's a master's or a PhD project sitting here
Yeah.
to rerun the analysis. We did it in 2001, I think, when we only had, I think we had about 1,200 sites of data. And now we have 9,000 sites of data. One of the things we wanted to do was to generate new suitability curves for all of these species for all of the metrics,
Mhm.
and do it using our scripts. So it's literally not a big job. I'd be happy to do this. We've had it on our wish list for several years now. And it frankly boggles my mind that no grad student has jumped on this as a project.
Mhm.
So it could be done.
Okay.
It should be done. It hasn't been done.
Okay. Well, that's good information for all of us to consider as we work through this stuff. But yeah, there's certainly some species that I think would be very useful for us. So,
Well, not just that, we've got extended range. All this data was collected on Lake Ontario tributaries,
yeah, exactly. Like rainbow
right?
murder were not out here and now they are. So
Yeah.
there's certainly some, yeah, okay, good.
Yeah, no, I look forward to somebody doing this. It'll be a lot of
So you
fun.
just offered anybody on the call or anyone you know, or anyone anybody knows,
Yep.
you're looking for an MSC.
Oh,
call them.
yeah. A powerful MSC. Probably the most powerful HSI models that could be developed in the world. Because all of this data is collected using standardized methods. And we've got the summary queries now. All you need to do is build the R scripts to do this. It's just, anyways. Maybe I should do it. I'm not fully retired yet. Anyways, one of the cool things we do in OSAP is we collect discharge a whole bunch of different ways. We collect it using hydraulic head and channel morphology data. We collect it using rapid assessment methods. We use it discharge methods with velocity meters, et cetera, et cetera. So what we've done is we've generated a whole bunch of queries to summarize up the various ways that discharge is collected. And what we've done is we've generated one summary report for each site using all the different methods, and we provide it in one table, which is exportable. This is a phenomenal data source for anybody who's interested in spot flow discharge. You can see we've got 8,800 sites that we've been able to generate discharge estimates. These are mostly base flow estimates. A lot of this data has already been used in a couple of manuscripts to look at the predictors of base flow discharge. It's just phenomenal. And Doug did a fabulous job of extracting all of this data and populating it. The other cool thing you can do with this is compare the estimates from the different methods. So we did a reconnaissance discharge here. We also did volume by time. And you could look at how variable the different methods are that we used. So really cool. The whole thing can be extracted and split down. You don't need to download the whole data set. You can do it by stream code, and you can save the whole thing as a CSV file. Very cool. Somebody asked about whether or not we could have eDNA or freshwater mussel data. Oh boy, I'd love it. We talked to the eDNA people a couple of years ago now, and they are considering whether or not they could get their data into a format that would make it linkable to the FWIS data. At the time, they were struggling with how to extract the presence-absence data, basically, of their species from their probabilities. So I don't know if you know about the eDNA data. It's all based on probabilities. They hardly ever say yes or no that a species is present, but they will say we have a 90% probability that brook trout are found in this water body. And so when we were talking to them, they weren't sure how they would be able to extract those predictions into a way that would make it easily digestible in a format like FWIS and like most users want to have. As for the mussel data, boy, I'd love to have that data in here, or at least be linked to it. That's what we'd want to be able to do. Okay, there's a whole bunch of information in there about physical structure, the channel morphology data. For those of you who use it, it's a very intensive data set. It's really only used for specific questions, but when it is used, and there's lots of data in the system, it generates a whole bunch of information about the morphology and geomorphology of a site. We also have RAM data that it's sort of next on the highlight to extract and generate those summary statistics for. The physical structure data, we generate a whole bunch of summary statistics for it. including spatially explicit cover, how much depth in the velocity distributions. We look at differences over time in structure. It's really powerful data, and it fits fairly well. Some of it fits well with describing fish community composition. Some of it doesn't, for individual species, which is really kind of cool in that some species respond to different aspects of channel morphology data, which makes sense. You know, rainbow darters, for example, are extremely selective in their substrate characterizations. They really don't care whether or not it's riffle runs or pools. They just like that certain types of substrate. But each one is a little different. So I'm going to go back to the database for a second here while people think, oh, I think I hit the wrong button. I did hit the wrong button. Instead of share screen, should be. Okay, hopefully you're seeing my FWIS screen again, are you?
Yep.
Good. I've mentioned a few times about the HSI scores. And one of the things we've been able to do over the last few months was, first of all, the most important thing was generate all the summary statistics for these individual sites. So perhaps I should show you that first. Before I go to the HSI, I'm going to go to channel structure, just so you see this thing. It's pretty cool. Actually, I'm not even sure we have data for that one. No, I don't think we do. Oh, there we go. Here's one. Okay, I'm just going to randomly pick a channel structure. There's some pretty cool stuff in here. First of all, for those of you who are familiar with OSAP a little bit, we collect bank full discharge data. And with that, you basically generate the lowest width to depth ratio to tell you where the bank full width is. This tool can allow you to, now I don't know if you can see that or not, but down at the bottom, as I'm moving this line over here, it's regenerating the width to depth ratio over here, 3.58. If I put the bank full location there, 4.6 there, 4.2. Whoop, I want to take that up just a little bit. 3.23. So it tells you how accurately you identified bank full height. Really cool. This is for geomorphologists. Like, I think they should be frothing at the mouth with this tool, because it allows you to look at your data you collected in the field and compare it to the actual profile and say whether or not you identified where the bank full level was accurately or not. It's really cool. We have it for both the channel morphology data and the bank full discharge data. So really cool tool that we have for that. We also have the channel structure report for each site. And in this, there are a whole bunch of summary statistics, starting with spatially explicit distribution of the habitat. So for example, at this site, it's almost exclusively shallow glides. Like, this is a boring site. It also has very little cover, only 11% cover. I don't know where this site is on the Beaver River, but it tells you just by looking at it, what this site is like. And the cover that there is present is embedded. So I can tell right now, this is a pretty crappy site. Very little cover and what cover there is. And there it is embedded. There's a distribution, the D50 is 0.1, not surprising. It's a sand bed stream, which is why all the cover is embedded. And there's the distribution of the substrates across the board. And if you don't like the D15 or the D85, you can choose your own. And you can find this inflection point at the 95%. So 95% of the sites are less than 50 millimeters. Pretty cool. It also gives you all the geomorphic summary scores here. So this is the width to depth ratio. The homogeneity score basically is 1, which is as high as it gets. It means it's uniform habitat. It's all the same. It gives you the width depth ratio. Bank stability is marginally stable. Sediment scoring index 238 is horrible. I can tell you that. That means it's all sand. And the sediment transport potential is also very high. So I don't know where this site is, but it's got some serious sediment problems. All of this data now is generated as a report. One of the things I did not show you is that if you want to print off the reports, if I remember correctly, I haven't done this for a long time. Where was it? Where's the create the report, Doug? Is that not up here?
I'm not sure what you're looking for, but there is a so-called printable version to the top right. That just turns
Top
off
right.
the navigation.
Sorry, I'm trying to look. Oh, there it is there. You can click this and print it off. What we used to do is print it off and staple it to our base field sheets. Or if there was a landowner that they asked for, you know, what you collected, you print this off and you send it to the landowner. They love it. So if you clicked on this, you'd get a nice printable report. You save it as a PDF. You can either email it or send it out. And this is what you get. It's pretty cool. The other thing that's built in here, and this site doesn't have any issues, there's a whole bunch of QA/QC things that are done within this query. And if there was a problem with a classification, you'd get a red bar up here and it would describe what the problem is. So quite often when people do data entry, they'll call cover when the, rock cover, for example, when the maximum particle size is only 70 millimeters. Well, that breaks an OSAP rule. So you get an error that says, sorry, you said there was cover, but apparently that was a typo. And it'll say, go fix it. It's really cool stuff. Okay, am I missing anything on that, Doug?
I think
Okay.
you've got it. McLean just asked about the minimum width calculation. I believe I've got that in. Not necessarily on this report.
Oh, no, it's not on this report. We don't generally record that.
Well,
That's
there's a width to depth ratio calculation there, but it's not the minimum.
no.
I think that was. I
the
thought I
minimum-
had it somewhere.
You do. The minimum width is on the channel morphology field sheet. So it's recorded in that table. It's not something we generally report out with. No, I guess it is. I take that back. It's on this sheet. It's just, there's no data there. And that probably means they didn't put it in the box. That's
Les,
That's
sorry.
exactly what that means.
Do you mind if I just clarify my question a little bit?
Sure.
I think that minimum width might have to do with the more the number of points or transects that we take when going through the OSAT modules. But just I noticed that that bankful tool that you showed before looked really, really interesting. But I just noticed that you could find the minimum width to depth by kind of moving that water level up and down, but I wasn't sure if there was somewhere that actually generated, say, a line across it showing this is where the calculated minimum width to depth ratio is.
Yeah, it does, in fact.
Okay, sorry if I missed that.
Yeah, the baseline that comes up, let me see if I can do that again. The baseline that comes up is the either measured for the bankful one or the predicted for the channel morphology one. So the predicted one from the channel morphology, it's a rapid assessment of where the bankful is. because it's based on a change in angle. So did we go to, what did we do? We went, I'll go to a different transect. So that line there, no, that can't be right.
So my understanding
Oh,
was
that
that was
is
the water level.
Yeah, that is, no, I believe. Now this looks different than the last time I looked at it. So I might need help with Doug. I believe this is the bank fault, the measured or predicted in this instance, bank full level. So it's looked at, let me see. Yeah, that is the bank water interface there, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So this looks different than what the last time I looked at it, Doug.
Now you're catching me off guard. It's been a while since I looked at this too.
It definitely looks different than the last time I looked at it. Maybe I should look at one of the bank full ones.
The short
it
answer
looks-
for McLean is somewhere I did a minimum depth with the depth ratio calculation. And I can't remember where.
This
Okay,
definitely looks,
Thanks, Doug.
this has been reset somehow. It's at the what?
Yeah, I'm a bit perplexed why the blue line's up so high, but I think you asked me to calculate that. I'm not 100% sure.
No, well, it should be up in here somewhere. There's something wrong with this. We're gonna have another look at this. It's different than what I remember looking at last time I looked at this, and it's been a few months since I've looked at this.
Just looking at, is that 0 just the water level? So like height above
That
of
is-
the below water line, that black
That
line?
would be the, no, this is the, I don't know what that black line is, to be honest. That's why I think it's been, this is supposed to be the calculated bank full height. That's what this is supposed to be. And then you can adjust it with this one. But I don't think that calculation looks correct anymore. So now I'm totally curious. I want to go to the bank full one.
I'm so sorry to have derailed the conversation.
No, no,
with
no.
that.
Well, it's supposed to be working. So the fact that it's not is a little disconcerting. So let's see if I can go to a different one and see if it's calculating it here better. There, that looks better. Okay, so here it's working correctly. This is the last one I looked at. So the crew said that this is where the bank full level was. You might argue that it's here. Now, what did that say? I forgot to look at it. Sorry, that one is, oh, come on, now I'm getting a delay. Okay, so it's 18.06. And if you move it to here, it goes to 17.89. So you could argue, but then you're off on this one. So it's probably pretty good, given that the tape has to be flat. So depending on the profile you get, in bank full measurements, quite often we would do multiple observations along here. So this site in particular, they didn't do that many up the bank. And I can't explain why it's working in this one and not in the other one. But we'll look into that. We'll get her fixed.
Thanks very much for going over that.
No, yeah, sorry. Well, it's good to know. I mean, it's also every once in a while things get broken and I don't know why. So to all of you, as you use this system, if you get something that's really wacky, contact either Doug or I and say, you know, I don't understand, this isn't working, or I got a really weird answer on this question, and we'll look into it and, you know, fix it. So as I said earlier, over the last few months, we've, now I'm freezing again. We've finalized all of the queries that were required to generate HSI scores. So back in 2001 or so, we built all these queries within HabProgs. We've basically replicated all of those within FWIS And then you can generate for an individual species. And of course, I'm going to choose brook trout. Oh, that's 80. I mean, you guys could select another species if you want. This table gives you all of the data. So we have 13,000 some sites where we can look at whether or not it's suitable for brook trout. Here's the raw summary scores. So this might be as valuable to you as anything else. The raw summary statistics for each of these sites is right here. Very cool. So it's including the geomorphic, biological, temperature, and physical habitat all in one table, which you can then save. I hope some people are drooling out there because this was a lot of work to get to this stage. We take it one step further, and based on those mostly Poisson distribution curves you saw, if we have those species, we can evaluate how suitable a site is. And to be honest, that Drains Creek does not look very suitable for brook trout. It's got terrible channel stability and terrible homogeneity, but pretty good thermal stability scores. So in interpreting that, what it means is you've got base flow, you've got groundwater, but you've got in-stream habitat issues. Jeff Anderson used to get excited at this kind of stuff because to say this is a potential for restoration work. A site like this. Really cool to have this all in one place. And you can then compare that to the suitability curves as to how much reliability you put in those curves, those scores versus others. Take note that you can also, search by individual streams. I'm hoping to get a project search on this one, but we haven't got that yet. Any questions about that? Of course, I can't see the time. How am I doing here? Oh, okay, not bad. Okay, I'm going to go back to the slide deck again. I think apparently there's a new. Okay. So it does. So the question about the minimum width to depth ratio, it does calculate that automatically, and then it recalculates it if you move the bar. And Doug's working on, I don't think we have it yet, an export function for that. Okay. Where's my screen gone? Okay, screen, there it is. Okay. So, I had ran through an example. We looked at OA1 on Oshawa Creek. I've already just gone through all this, so I'm going to scoot through this. The sediment structure one, just so you know, we have got a fairly complex query that calculates whether or not a site is considered to have, it's basically first classifies it as a sand, gravel, cobble bed stream, also bedrock, Gavia feces, and concrete channels are also classified. Once it's classified using the D50, it then looks at what is the proportion of fines within that. And if there's a lot of fines, then you get, a low score. So that's pretty cool. We also calculate the sediment sorting index, sediment transport potential. Those are the calculations for that. And then we have that sediment quality query. I'm kind of repeating what I showed earlier. Here's the HSI score for rainbow darters. Some species care about substrate, others don't. The channel stability rating is based on 4 separate queries that calculate an overall channel stability score. This is our geomorphic score for these sites. It's a pretty powerful tool. And for this Oshawa Creek one, you get an overall score of 1, which means that it's moderately stable. It's wider than it should be. That's the width to depth ratio, so it loses on that. And the sediment is sorted poorly, but the banks are reasonably stable and the sediment transport measure is in balance. So it's got some problems. In other words, it's probably a grading, and it just gives you that detailed information about what's going on. I talked about the bank flow measurements. I've already shown you this. So it's repeating it now. I showed you that. We've talked about a little bit about the ARA and the DFO databases. We're developing links to other databases. So some people are starting to, a lot of people are putting their data into Whiskey and or are building their own databases. We have the ability to link to any database basically, and either do exports or do full links where we can have up-to-date data. That all depends on the willingness of the organization to help build those links, and more importantly, to share the data. So that continues to be a challenge. We have not yet developed a hyperlink to any database except the Oak Ridge Marine groundwater database. And we have a hyperlink to them, which shows our baseflow data in context of all of the data that they have within their portal. And that's really cool, really cool. But I'd like to have better linkages to the various conservation authorities so that it's not so painful trying to get data from the various CAs. I wanted to show you this one simply because it's so cool. So there's for one section of the Oak Ridge Marine database, all of the base flow data that is within FWIS and is now accessible within the groundwater database. So the hydrologists can use that information to validate their hydrologic models, which they couldn't do before. They would have predictions of base flow, but they didn't know how well their models predicted base flow. Now they can link to FWIS, find out where the base flow data is, and see how well their predictions rate to that. Very cool. It's like just phenomenal, I think. Anyway, so they've got some really cool links within that. We want to extend our summary queries to the RAM pebble counts and the RAM channel morphology data. We haven't done that yet. That's just, it shouldn't be too hard. We want to build more R scripts. So we have some now, but they are not automated. So if you want to download and link the data, it's basically you have to download it now and link it to the R scripts manually. We're hoping to be able to take particularly Patrick's R scripts and have a seamless entry, but that may be more tricky than we have right now. It's still pretty straightforward. Basically, the way it is right now, if you open up Patrick's R scripts, you basically do a link to our fish or benthic summary queries, and you can run all of his scripts. It's pretty straightforward, but it's not automated. And in an ideal world, we'd have that automated. We'd like to have a stronger relationship with digital temperature data. Right now, all we have is that historical digital temperature data. The management of digital temperature data in this province is abysmal. And I know that there are literally thousands of records out there that are all in jeopardy of being lost and are generally not accessible to researchers looking at trends in temperature, which, I mean, it's one of our best indicators of climate change. And we're doing a horrible job of managing it. And it's kind of on that to-do list. We have so that's enough whining. Basically, within FWIS, we can now take any digital temperature data. We haven't got the queries built to clean it up. So the assumption would be that users would clean their own data and then upload it to FWIS or develop links to FWIS so that we have a better capacity to look at digital temperature data over time. And now it's time for you guys to play in FWIS a little bit and offer suggestions as to what you think we need to do. So I want to open the floor up.
Rebecca has
also-
asked about a link to Patrick's package.
Ah, yes. Can I put that in the, can you put the copy of that into the chat box there, or should I just email it to them afterwards? Have you got it handy?
I don't have it handy, no.
Okay, I will email that to you afterwards. I assume you want both the benthic one and the fish one, correct? Okay, I will send them both to you. To everyone.
Celeste, I may have missed it, but in the export feature, is there a way to export multiple sites and multiple years for habitat data?
Yes,
Okay,
Yes, there
missed
is.
that.
and I will show you.
Thank you.
Hopefully you are now seeing my FWIS page. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you have multiple options. First of all, you can go to the export function and you can export the raw data. So you could just go to this here. And this will allow you to export the raw data of any of the tables. Okay? And more importantly, if you're interested in the summary statistics. Oh, no, sorry, I hit the wrong one. This one here that says channel structure, summary, multiple events, export. And I already told it to go to the wrong one. Oh. Okay, am I freezing? Huh. You can see the little mouse going around in circles on its wheel. Hmm. I guess because everybody's in their plane right now. I'm the low man on the totem pole.
Yeah, I'm watching that lesson. I'm not entirely sure. It's, to me, the system's sitting there idle, but
Yeah, I also can't refresh my screen.
so
So
there's
I-
folks doing stuff. But in any
It's doing
case,
stuff.
just to be clear, everything that you showed on that individual channel morphology report, the embedded, unembedded covers, the vegetation, sediment data, even the graph, the data for that graph comes out in the multiple export. Yeah.
This one here, I don't know if you can see the button. If I could get it to work on my machine, and I'm gonna, no, I can't reset. I don't know what's going on. It's not happy with me. This is where Doug gets frustrated because I tend to click, click,
Okay,
click.
well, you've got it now. What channel?
Oh, I
what?
got it. It hasn't come up yet.
Well, I'm seeing it. I think.
Oh, there it is. Okay, good, 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 good. Yeah. So I can do an individual project, stream names, whatever. You will see I've got 4,456 records here. And if I hit up here where it says save results as a CSV file, it will give me all of the data for all 4,456 records. I don't really want all that data, but if, because that'll take a little while, you could restrict it to a specific project. That's where the projects come in handy. So you pick your project, select that, and okay, come on, mouse, stop acting up.
And the other thing to mention, Les, is when you look at the listing of results of those, you saw the first 50 or so of 4,200 results, there's quite a few more fields, all the data in particular, that don't get shown on the listing, but still come out if you do save results as CSV file.
Yeah.
It produces a much wider, and of course, it also doesn't pay any attention to the 50 results at a time. The CSV that you produce is the whole 4,200 or whatever it does respect what I'll call current search constraints. So if you've restricted it as you have to EEC 99, a particular project, and however many samples there are from that, none at the moment, but I know obviously there's more in there somewhere. There's probably another search constraint in effect.
Oh, right. No, I remember we only had RAM data for those sites. So I forgot about that. So the other thing you could do, and it's probably I would recommend you do this, is to use a spatial query. Because there are problems with both project codes and with the lumping and splitting. Remember I mentioned about lumping and splitting? So the best way to make sure you get all the data from your, area that you're interested in would be to do a spatial query on it. And I think, who was it asked for this? Was it Rito?
Nope, not
Nope.
us.
Well,
Oh, it was Rebecca from TRCA. But
Oh,
I
okay.
think I just put in stream name Humber and was able to get everything from the Humber watershed.
so you hope.
Yeah, yeah.
Except, see, the challenges with that, to be honest, is that you will get all the ones that have Humber. You won't necessarily get the tributaries. That's the whole problem with lumping and splitting. So I don't know if I know there's a West Humber, there's an East Humber. Are there other tributaries to the Humber? I don't know. But in this instance, I actually didn't get any that doesn't make any, because I've still got this on here. That's why. Let's try that again. Yeah, so the spatial ones, I tend to use them more often because I don't trust the stream names. So that one should give me 226 records for the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority. There are
Okay.
there
That's
are
a-
also, pardon me?
That's a helpful tip. Thank you.
Yeah, and then you could also just do the CSV and you will get all the data. I'm not going to do that right now because I don't want to, that's a lot of data. That'll be a relatively big file. But you guys that's a lot of headwater sites. Now you can see it first came up with the 226, but then it also showed all the data around. There's a lot of data for Eastern Ontario. That's pretty cool. The other thing you should be aware of, if you're interested in just the Humber, for example, one of the other layers that's in here is quaternary and tertiary watersheds. So if you go down here somewhere, there's a whole bunch there's the upper tier watersheds, quaternary and tertiary watersheds. So if you wanted to split, I think the TRCA has what, 5 or 6 quaternary watersheds within your jurisdiction? This might be a better button for you to restrict it down even further. Okay, so these really are helpful in all of the screens and for then extracting and saving the data. Now I'm hoping people are playing in there. I can't tell. I assume Doug knows that they are playing. Maybe I will try to. What could possibly go wrong with me hitting that button? Okay. Yeah, that's taking time. What? Yeah, normally I get my downloads within seconds.
There's definitely stuff going on. I'm just not entirely sure what.
Yeah. I was hoping to be able to show you the actual file. And Hmm. I'm actually not getting any indication that it's sending me the data. I'm doing this again. I guess I'm not used to having server issues, Doug. I'm having to share the system.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm really quite surprised. We have done performance studies on this thing and it's usually pretty good. But most of the time, frankly, unless you and I are the only ones on the system or
Yeah.
a handful of people entering data or something like that.
Well, it doesn't look like I'm going to get that export. Has anyone else attempted to export some of that channel morphology data? The strange thing, Doug, is that I can't refresh my screen. I'm not used to that. So it seems to have locked up. Yeah, I can't do anything. Error, no response. I have been booted out.
That's a mapping layer, actually.
Is it? Oh, you
Yeah.
saw that.
The mapping is rather inefficient.
Hmm.
And that's an area that I'm investigating for sure. Data itself, you know what, to do your demonstration class, just can you select one stream or a handful of sites?
Yeah, I'm trying to. Okay, let's see if I can. No matching sites. Oh, for crying out loud. It refreshed, but it kept a project for me. Doesn't normally do that. Okay, there, I've got some data. See if I can save this. Only 3. Okay, yay. Now, hopefully, can you guys see the Excel spreadsheet? Or do I have to do a new share?
I think you're gonna have to share it.
Okay,
You're sharing at the window level as opposed to the screen.
right. Where is it? I think it's this one. With any luck, you're seeing Norno Creek, Wilmot Creek.
There we go. Yep.
Perfect. So you'll see there's a bunch of crap here. You don't need to worry about that. That's just unique identifiers. There's the project title, a bunch of blah, blah, blah. And then you start to get the summary data. And it goes on and on and on and on, including average wedded width, usable area, whether there's any islands. There's the physical habitat summary data. I just realized these are pretty cryptic. If you don't know what these things mean, they're relatively logical. This is physical habitat substrate OTS. So that I don't know what it means. Oh, yes, I do. These are the substrate category. Yeah, pools, media, intermediate. That's what these stand for. So these would be the titles that are on the summary report. Remember the 4x4 tables? That's what these refer to. There's also a I'm trying to remember where it is. Doug has generated a bibliography of all the terminology used in FWIS.
The data dictionary.
The data dictionary. Whereabouts is that, Doug?
I believe that's only on the administrator page, but the data is accessible. To answer your question, Les, when you get some of these cryptic code names and unembedded this and that's, there's 2 or 3 ways to say, what exactly am I looking at? The one I would use first is simply to pull up the individual report for
Right.
the corresponding site and say, okay, under unembedded something or other, column B,
Right.
BP, there's this 1.7 and an 8.5. What does that correspond to in the chart you had when you had the individual report showing?
Yes. Yeah.
The more formal way to get the list, when you've got your Excel spreadsheet interface going,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, or like you said, the entire data dictionary is accessible from that. And the table of these dictionary codes is one of the tables you can download and may even be in the one that we distribute. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I don't remember seeing that there.
It is.
It is there. Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well done. Anyways, as you can see, there is an awful lot of data generated from the channel morphology records. So here we are over to F. Oh, it includes, I did not know that you'd done this. Oh, this is nice. So what you're seeing here is the summary outputs from those reports at the bottom. So you get that as well, including the scores. That's cool. I didn't know you did this, Doug.
Oh, yeah. Everything on the individual report is
Is
accessible.
in here.
Yep.
Okay, so that is pretty cool. So there you go. There's your summary data as well as the raw data. That's a very powerful export. Are there any other questions? Now that we got that to work. Well, maybe I'll ask people specifically since you're all being shy. Amanda, you have anything that you'd like me to expand on?
Nothing for me right now. I think I'm a little bit behind because I was having trouble getting FWIS to load.
Mm-hmm.
But I might have something later on once I kind of play around with it a little bit more.
Okay. Okay. Holly? I bet you're wondering where the rest of your benthic data is. Or are you poking around looking for it?
I've been trying to poke around and look for things, but I keep kind of timing out. I think there's just a lot of people in the database right now, so it's a bit slow. I think I missed a bit. There was some kind of commotion in my office for a little bit. And as far as using the Excel template to be able to upload data,
Mhm.
getting the base headings and associated macros set up to be able to do that. I think I missed that. So maybe everybody else is cool with it and I should just go back and look at the recording later, but I did miss that.
Well, as far as getting the macros to work, you just download the spreadsheet from the main page of FWIS.
Oh, yes, yes, I have that already. I was just
And then when
wondering,
you-
like, the sheet that you gave us in the template, it just says sheet 1 and then play around in here, but there's no headings and there's nothing in there.
Oh, there's
Um,
nothing on sheet 1 because that's your worksheet.
Yeah,
And then if you go to the right of that, you start to get into the tables
mhm.
that are in FWIS. So those are the working tables. And my recommendation was that you copy whatever working table you need to upload
Okay, I missed that part.
and
Okay.
put it in the sheet 1 and create a new worksheet each time.
Perfect. Yep.
So that you
okay,
don't,
that
so
was
you
the
don't
thing I missed.
destroy the, so you don't destroy the main sheet, if that makes sense.
Oh,
You're
yeah, it makes
working, you
total
have a
sense.
working copy of it.
Yeah, and I just wasn't able to get the delineations of a watershed, for instance, to show up when I wanted to do a query. Maybe it's just because it wasn't working, or could you show again how to get
I can,
that
yep.
outline polygon?
The main thing, it's the thing I forget to do all the time, is to click on the arrow. And yeah, you click on the arrow and then in the map.
We're still on your spreadsheet, Les.
Yeah, I'm trying to switch back to FWIS. You should be looking at FWIS now, are you?
The lower part of
Yes.
your page, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll go to data discovery. It doesn't matter wherever this map shows up. It doesn't matter if you're in data discovery or export or whatever it is. It will, well, there's all the FWIS sites we have. That's pretty cool. However, that's not what you're interested in. What you're interested in is, oh boy, it is slow now.
Yeah, there's one query I'm seeing that's taken a fair amount of time and it just won't stop.
Okay, pretend that I've got a watershed thing. The main thing is to click on this and then this to highlight it.
If you zoom in first, Les, you
Yeah, I
usually
can't get
the results.
I can't get it to do anything right now.
Well, now the other thing is you've clicked on that little slider up in the top left. Most people can spin their mouse wheel to zoom in. It's a little easier than the sliders.
Well, my wheel is going up or down the page.
When you're in the map black box, the scrolling, turning the wheel should zoom the map.
Yeah, except I'm frozen.
Okay.
So
Doug, I'm also not able to zoom with the scroll wheel.
Yeah, and I'm sorely tempted to stop this database query that's going on right now and restart the engine.
yeah, I've never seen it do this before. This is new. But
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Well, this is a sledgehammer approach, but so everything's going to freeze for a minute, or at least stop in its tracks. You might see a whole bunch of errors start to appear.
yeah, I got booted out.
Well, just don't do anything for a second.
Oh, don't log back in?
Just give it 1 minute to finish stopping, as it were,
Oh, okay.
because it's not just your connection that's stopping right now. Chrome will likely refresh as soon as it sees some content change. Okay, try a refresh on your page, Les. Okay, so
And I'm
there's
still
your
in.
discovery stuff.
Okay. All right, let's see if, there, that's better. Yay. Okay. So again, you click on one of the vectors. Conservation authorities. You click in the map. And then it highlights red. And then you
That-
click on
Yeah, exactly.
the
So you
arrow,
select the layer and then you
here.
click on the arrow box.
and that's how it works. But it's, what you had to remember is clicking on that arrow.
Thank you.
Matt, you have any other questions other than this is annoying today?
No, I actually think this has been super helpful. Learning how to do these spatial queries is like super huge. I think for me, I
Yeah.
just need to play around with it. and
Yeah.
Try and figure out, like, I think based on what you said, I can probably muddle through, but got to play with it.
Yeah, you do have to play with it. And I often forget things, to be honest. I get frustrated and then I'll write Doug and you'll say, oh yeah, you just have to do this and duh. It's usually a duh moment for me. How about Adam? Have you got any specific questions?
No, I think Matt said it best. Is got to play around with it and experience it yourself.
Okay.
Yeah,
The other
thank you.
part of your question, Les, would be areas of interest. Are there things you saw or didn't see? Things that we should be investigating deeper. So it's not just like, this isn't an exam on did the system work for you?
Yeah.
I don't even want to know the answer to that one.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, what would it do that might be helpful?
Okay, Siobhan, you got any specific questions or?
Not right now. I'm kind of in the boat with everybody else, fiddling with it more and things like that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Rebecca?
Yeah, say I wanted everything for 4 or 5 sites. I don't want to have to click on each of the individual queries or exports. Can I get everything from one site for all years?
Not without asking for it by module.
Okay,
Yeah, you'd have to go down through the hierarchy. Because it downloads individual tables.
right.
So you'd basically get 5, 6, 7 tables, unless you want the raw data, in which case you're getting 15 to 20 tables.
Right. I guess I think that'd be one thing I love. It's probably hard to do, but one table for the site for all of the variables.
Wow. Well, you saw that channel morphology one went out to column, what was it, FC or something like that?
Yeah, I did.
And that was only channel morphology. So you can imagine what would happen if we tried to do all of them.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a little overwhelming.
it could be.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe that's something that we might eventually do with R. Like I've always had this vision of building a hierarchical model that we're not there yet, obviously. But at some point we want to build a model that shows the whole ecological health of the site and how it can predict fish assemblages. And for that, you would have all of the data in one query.
Yeah, I mean, if you went right to R and skipped Excel, that would be fine for me because that would
Yeah.
be my ultimate purpose anyway.
I
Getting
think
it set up to bring into R to do something with more. Yeah, so I mean, that would be great from my perspective.
I agree. We're just not there yet. Kirsten?
That issue of sort of just give me everything is a pretty tough one. And it's not just the numbers, although we're talking about 1,000 streams, 12,000 sites, 66,000 sample events. When you get down into the details of channel morphology and individual fish versus bulk fish, there's 20, 30, 40 fields in some of these tables, and it's just enormous. And how to bring that back down into a single table is just an enormous job, and thousands upon thousands of records by the time it's consolidated. So it's a pretty tough thing to do. There's 23 or 26 different types of sample events. The big ones: fish, channel morphology, site identification, site features. Site features alone has 25 or 30 fields. A lot of those are checkboxes. It's a significant amount of data. And then,
Yeah.
however, 4,000, 5,000 pictures and photos and sketches and stuff. How many gigabytes? About 12, I think, it's on the order of about 5 to 10 gigabytes of photo data. Not impossible, but it's pretty big.
Maybe there's a way to build in some functionality for choice. So for example, I would, if I was going to look into an analysis in R, I probably don't need I certainly don't need the pictures,
No.
So maybe there's a way that I can get benthic fish and physical information and choose which some of either the output summaries data or the raw data that I would like. So just more of a sort of a a la carte menu as opposed to needing everything.
Right. Well, that HSI query I showed you is as far as I know, the only place right now where we have it all combined in one spot. Right? This one here has the geomorphic summary. Mind you, it's the summary. It's not the raw data, but it is our best measure of a single attribute for that feature in the database. Why is that
Okay,
not open?
mine's not loading at the minute. When I did play around with it, it looked like that didn't work for most of the fish species I was interested in, but I was choosing by fish unless I'm thinking of the wrong query. Like, for example, there was nothing for emerald shiner.
Right.
But you could pick by, you're saying you could pick by site and that would work?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. I think
so what happens though is you still get the summary data. You wouldn't necessarily get the HSI data. So one of the things you probably didn't notice there is that the summary scores are, and I can't get it to run right now for whatever reason. The summary data doesn't really change, whether it's a brook trout or a rainbow trout. The channel structure score is the same for all the species, right? So you'll notice here, the score for that metric doesn't change. It's still, no matter what, it's a sandbed, low quality stream, right? So you can just choose these summary statistics. And if we have the data, that's where it is. You don't have to use the HSI scores, but this summary data it's the only place it shows up as a benthic, channel structure, geomorphology, substrate temperature, blah, 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 metric for that site. And that may be all you need.
Yeah, that's a helpful first start for sure.
Yeah.
So Les, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yep.
For these are all observations that have actually been made, like all these fish species are actually in these streams.
Where there is biomass.
Yeah.
Where there's biomass for them, yes.
Okay.
In some cases, in this instance, there's no rainbow trout at that site.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Yeah, that's why there's the column here as biomass.
Sure. And for the scores, for like the channel structure score, is there like some sort of chart or something that'll tell us like the quality per number assigned?
Well, in this instance, for channel structure, the higher the number, the more habitat quality, the more habitat for that species has been identified. Now,
on
I
the
think
yellow column, it has the score channel structure as well.
The yellow is the HSI score. What does that correlate to? So this, unfortunately, I just realized, I'm not sure that you have access. Maybe Doug will answer this question. Doug, can they get access to that fish habitat summary table that's used to generate these scores?
Fish habitat summary, like the fish summary of total catches is accessible.
No, remember the Excel spreadsheet we had? Okay, so
The
there's a
lookup-
table, there's a lookup table that's used to generate these scores for the channel structure. And it'll say, for rainbow trout, they prefer riffles, medium depth. And if you have that kind of habitat, you get a 1. And they don't like, shallow, I don't know, fast riffles or whatever it is. It's based on some literature reviews for channel structure that is very specific. That's the only one that's really specific. It's based on a literature review of the habitat requirements for these, the channel structure requirements for these species.
Okay.
Okay, the other ones are based on geomorphic summaries or thermal stability or Hilsnoff index, if we have that. And I'm surprised there's so many without Hilsnoff indexes.
So the story you're looking at, Les, is that the green column, with possible exception on the very left, is consistent across a site.
Right.
And the yellow area is apply that green data to brown trout or brook trout, white suckers, and so on, and how appropriate is that habitat suitable for this location. The table you just mentioned a few minutes ago is called the species habitat requirement, and that is not currently accessible, but I think it should be.
I think it should be too.
Is it? It's public information.
Yep.
Like you just
Yeah.
sent it to me and said here.
No, that's the basic of, in fact, it should be available.
Okay.
I don't know where
I'll
you're
get
going to
in
make it
there. It's
available.
not in there right now, but later today.
When it goes in, it's a very powerful tool. It represented about 4 or 5 years of lit review to come up with the habitat requirements of each species. So it has the habitat requirements in there. For example, for channel structure, we assigned scores for every species. So you could use the scores to generate a score for a species for which we don't have a model based on a literature review. I should have mentioned that earlier. It's a really cool table. It is basically just to look at the channel structure data and you add up the number of habitat types. Each one gets a score and you add them up, and that's what this represents. So that absolutely should be entered, should be available. And if you're interested in, somebody said something about Emerald Shiner. If you wanted to generate a score for Emerald Shiner, you could. Lots of work for master's students. One last question from anyone. Okay. Thank you very much. I can't believe it. We never end on time, but we're going to end on time. Thank you very much. I guess we can end the recording, and it will eventually be up on the FWIS website. If you